coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
Because it could legitimately be that you just went through a season that anybody would be physically exhausted and emotionally drained.
That's exactly right. And so you got to factor in, I always tell people, hey, wait. Don't start searching the internet for new jobs on Monday morning.
Now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Lead Ministry Podcast. Grateful that you're here. Hey, guess what? Some great person out in podcast land reached out to me and said, hey, have been enjoying the Burnout series and asked a lot of great questions, had some great thoughts, and it's been affecting their life in a positive way. And then they asked the question, what do I do? How do I know whether or not I'm burned out or if I'm being called out to leave this particular vocational role that I have? So in other words, hey, I'm kind of like stuck. I might be burned out, but God might be calling me out to a different church, or God may be calling me out to a different role altogether. How do I go about discerning that? And so the interesting thing is that Bill and I forwarded the email to him. We kind of kicked it back and forth and talked, and we thought, and then we kind of had some more conversations with this gal. Hopefully she's listening today, right? Because it's all about her in a sense. And so then we decided, Bill, that it'd be fun to make an episode directly answering some of those questions that we'd been dialoguing with her about.
Yeah, I think that this is a key thing for a lot of people because they can feel similar, can't they? Like feeling like you're burning out, or maybe it could be that God is actually just making you discontent because he wants to call you to something different. Yeah.
And so it's difficult. It's difficult to know the difference. And so that's what we're going to deal with today. Well, again, we're grateful that you're here on the podcast. Hey, we've been talking about this silent killer of ministry, and it's burnout. We've got a lot of traction. A lot of people have been very excited about this particular content and this particular series within the podcast. And we've been at it, Bill, for a number of weeks here. So, but this one here, this podcast series about how to avoid burnout, we're going to dive deep right away here into should I stay or should I go? Makes me think of a song.
That song instantly popped into my head when you read that.
Yeah.
I won't sing it because I'm not a singer, but
and it's by the band The Clash, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. And so should I stay or should I go? Well, we're talking about discerning. Are you burned out or are you being called out to leave the current position that you're in? Well, as you know, we try to define it, develop it, and then we're going to have an opportunity for like a call to action. And this will be very, very, very practical today. So from a definition standpoint, how do I tell the difference between burnout and God calling me to be done? So this burnout versus call out. Well, let's understand burnout first. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see on the screen that we have physical exhaustion, we have emotional drain, and then finally spiritual depletion. Burnout is not necessarily that you should quit. It's just that maybe some things need to be addressed, right? So from a physical exhaustion standpoint, you're experiencing constant fatigue and a lack of energy. I don't know about you, but I'm experiencing that right now in my life, Bill. I'm a little bit on the tired side, right?
Yeah. And I think everyone gets there at some point, right? Like there's not one person who is like, I can just go and never stop.
Yes. And so physical exhaustion is nothing more than an indicator. Am I right? It's like all of a sudden a symptom, and that could be that you need to take a little bit of a rest. That's not necessarily that you need to quit your job. Now, another one is emotional drain. You're feeling overwhelmed and emotionally spent. And it's just like you've been giving out, and Easter is now over. You had this super hard push and you're just emotionally drained. Couple that with you're physically exhausted. This is not a good time typically to throw in the towel.
Right. Yeah, because it could legitimately be that you just went through a season that anybody would be physically exhausted and emotionally drained.
That's exactly right. And so you got to factor in, I always tell people, hey, wait. Don't start searching the internet for new jobs on Monday morning.
Right.
No, don't do that. And then,
Yeah,
of course,
like take a nap, eat something,
yeah,
spend some rest time,
go for a
reevaluate.
walk. Go for a walk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Touch
Take a nap.
grass, as they
Yeah,
say.
touch some grass, see the sun, right?
Right.
Don't
Right.
quit. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, of course, then you've got spiritual depletion. Maybe it's you're having a difficulty connecting with God and a difficulty connecting with others. These are all symptoms that you may just be kind of worn down. And that is not a time to quit. That's a time to figure out some recharging strategies.
Absolutely.
So, and again, if somebody is going to be on this podcast today, Bill, and they're going to be like, okay, great, they're going to give me the answers. I want to clue you in. You're not going to get any answers today. This is more of a process by which you and you alone end up figuring out what you should do next. This is not, it's like there's more spirit of God involved in here than there is a rote checklist. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I think hopefully what we're doing is kind of like hammering in some signposts along your path.
Exactly.
In order that you can take that path and kind of discern where God wants you next.
Yeah. And the idea is that burnout manifests in a short fuse sometimes. Getting a little snappy with people, maybe dropped responsibilities. Maybe you're dropping a few balls. That's just, again, an indication that you're not on top of your game. Maybe it's an inability to bounce back from external challenges, right? So you've had a big Easter weekend and it's taking you 10 days to get your footing about you. That's not necessarily you should quit your job. This is, you got beat up and you might need to take an extended recovery time. Now, that's understanding a little bit about burnout. Now let's turn the corner and start to ask the question, how can you recognize if you're being called out to something new, something different, to quit the plow that your hand has been on and put it to a different plow? That could be at a different church. It could be that you're going to go work at the bank. Your vocation is not what we're talking about. We're talking about whether you're going to leave your current role. And so if you're watching again on YouTube, we have on the screen in terms of this recognizing if God is calling you out, a holy nudge, a new assignment, fresh fruit, and inner peace. Let's talk about each. From a holy nudge, maybe it's a gentle but persistent urging to release a season of ministry that you're currently in. Maybe it's time you have this holy nudge inside where it's like, I just can't escape this. I think it's time that this chapter is coming to an end.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot from people when they move on often. I've heard people say that they've known for a long time that God has been gently pushing them to something else. And so it's one of those hard things because how do you discern the Spirit? It's an open question, and it can be hard to know when the Spirit is nudging you. But often when we look back, we'll go,
it's clear.
Oh, yeah, it's clear. The Spirit was nudging me. So I've heard this language a lot from people when they are being called out.
Yes, I like that. The holy nudge. How about this? A new assignment. It's like a sense of excitement about a different direction or a different role. Now, this is one that I have to be very cautious with because, dude, I get excited. I want to do everything.
Yes.
Everything seems exciting. Yeah.
I've been in this one a lot, actually, and just within my roles in church ministry, the next thing comes up and I'm like, ooh, new, shiny. I want to do that thing.
Yes.
I can fix that.
Yes.
I can build that.
And, we're not going to talk about this today, but I do have my own personal, checklist that I personally go through to discern new ideas. And part of that discernment process is give it 24 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
But maybe you are seeing something new and that's exciting to you. I don't want to throw a wet blanket on that. But, you have to understand that the two people that are leading this podcast, Josh and Bill, we both have shiny object syndrome.
Yes, true.
And that me being excited about something is certainly not an indication that I should go do that.
Yeah, right. Don't confuse just pure excitement for God telling you to do something. I've heard that before too, and I'm like, no, there's more to it than just that.
There is, and this is not on our screen right now, but this is another important piece that I think is worthy of mentioning. I've had plenty of people who were either getting ready to or did make a massive life decision based solely on the idea, well, God opened the door. Okay,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I should walk through it.
Right, exactly.
And how is it that you're actually discerning that God opened the door? Or is this just dude, listen, if you're even nominally successful at something, other people are going to come along and say to you, hey, I think that God is calling you to fulfill my stuff. And it's like, wait.
That is so true, yeah. All a man's ways seem right to him, but motives are judged by the Lord, right?
That's it, exactly. Great passage out of Proverbs. Well, okay, so you got holy nudge, maybe a new assignment, but also you got fresh fruit. Maybe it's an unexpected opportunity and growth in a new area, and you're just feeling like, for instance, there's a gal that does coaching with Lead Ministry. Her name is Jody Quinn, and she does a fantastic job. And her roster for coaching. Well, let me tell the story. It goes like this. I had her on a podcast, and it was a fantastic podcast about team building. And I was like, man, she's sharp. And then we got done with the podcast, and I said, hey, don't take this too realistically, but I've kind of learned over the years that when I have this nudge, I kind of want to ask, like, what do you see yourself doing in the next 5 years? And by any chance, would you ever want to work with me? And she said, she looked to the left, she looked to the right, she goes, hang on. And then she closed her door. She goes, I'm actually quitting my job soon. I'm actually, and she goes, and I just really feel, and I hadn't told her anything about what I was thinking about. And she said, I just really feel God's nudge or calling or this this new assignment about coaching. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. And so she said that she had already gone through some coaching training, but it wasn't that good. And, this unexpected opportunity popped up. And it kind of converged a lot of interesting things. She was having a holy nudge. She was kind of thinking that this old assignment was closing, a brand new opportunity. And then, of course, she had inner peace, this calm assurance that the direction that we were talking about was something that she wanted to move on. And so she did. And now she is with Lead Ministry. She has as full of a coaching roster as I do. And so,
wow.
So that's huge. So God was calling her out, but all of a sudden, it wasn't like this huge billboard that was flashing, Jody, it's time to quit. No, it was all of these odd things that kind of just all lined up together. And through her prayer life, she was able to discern that maybe this is the thing.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I think what you're talking about is really is a piece of alignment a lot of times. It's multifactored where, well, maybe I was excited about an open door, but also I've been feeling like God has been kind of pushing me a little bit. And wow, like when I think about this opportunity, I have so much peace about going in this direction, and all of these things converge. And so if you have multiple pieces of those things converging, it might be that God really is calling you to something else. Exactly.
And factor in also that she was, I don't want to say experiencing burnout, I don't want to speak for her, but there were some challenges that were happening within her ministry that we're just kind of like, oh, they're dragging me down. These challenges are dragging me down. And this other thing is exciting, plus the holy nudge, plus the opportunity. The low points here and the high points here, it kind of all converge together. Okay, Now we're going to turn the corner and talk about a framework for discernment. Okay, so we're going to develop this. We kind of defined it about, the differences, right, between burnout or being called out. And now we're going to go a little bit deeper and develop it. Okay, so we're going to have, I think, 4 F's. One is fruitfulness. So this is kind of a framework. Let's test for fruitfulness. Is there still evidence of lives being changed and spiritual growth occurring through your current role? Okay, probably yes. Another one, resource allocations. Are there investments of time? Are the investments of time, money, and energy producing visible results? And so you're looking at, okay, has the fruitfulness factor kind of petered out and it's kind of going in a low direction? That's not to say, right? I mean, there's been plenty of stories, Bill, of missionaries of old who felt deeply called. They stayed with it. They had zero fruitfulness for 30 years. So a lack of fruitfulness isn't a for sure, but it's one of several indicators.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a story once about this missionary couple who, I don't remember where they're serving now, but they were serving overseas somewhere, and they legitimately worked and worked and worked years, their whole life. They retire as missionaries with zero converts. And then the next missionary comes in and the ministry just completely explodes. And a whole bunch of people came to know Jesus. And when they talked about why it happened, it was all leading back to that groundwork that missionary couple did. We don't always get to see the fruitfulness of our labor. So it's kind of a good point to talk through that and to remember that.
It is. And so watch this, fruitfulness or a lack of fruitfulness isn't an indicator to stay or go, but it is an indicator. It is one of the dashboard lights. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you can't, and the reason why is because sometimes your season is up there, and because your season is up, a lot of things you're doing might be just spinning your wheels.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so those are factors to put in. Another one, not just fruitfulness, but also fulfillment. Now, here's an interesting one, and we're going to talk about this. We talked about this in a previous episode. We're going to talk about it in our closing episode as well. But what about this ministry buzz? Now, is your fulfillment, are you actually excited about the ministry and the good things that are going on with the Lord and the Spirit and all that? Or are you addicted to the adrenaline rush of constant activity? That is a real and legit question.
It really is, yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the things in this series that we touched on that I think is really profound. We can very much get addicted to just the pure activity and challenge of a task.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we can, in church, in my opinion, church work is very susceptible to tricking us into thinking that we're truly making a difference in the world, to where really we're just crushing it at our job. I'll never forget, Bill. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. Through the Amazing Chemistry Show, did this humongous event. They had rented out a baseball field for the adults, and then we had this huge complex for the kids, and I was doing the kids part. And I remember one of the leaders afterward said, well, I just really feel God's presence was with us. And she began to list off all of the organizational wins that we had, the computer system worked and everybody got where they needed to go. She was talking about structural wins. And in my mind, it was very telling, because at that time, that leader and some of the leaders around her, she was gauging whether or not something was successful because of administrative gears meshing well together.
Yeah.
Right? And so
she was attributing success, and she was contributing the Holy Spirit's work to organizational aspects of probably things you did, right? You did.
Yes. And things that they did leading up to this that we had talked about. And so no errors administratively is not necessarily an indication that God was with you.
That's right.
Because I can manically set up systems and have things ordered, and God is not present. I mean, let's do a quick thing. Here we are on Easter at our church, or my home church, and the laundry list of things that went wrong administratively at our church on Sunday, including we're at a school, we have a building that we've purchased, we're not ready to move in yet, we'll move in September, but we're in a school, and in the middle of Easter Sunday, the power goes out.
What? Oh no.
A few backup lights kick on. There is no microphone,
Oh my goodness.
right? And, 7 people place their faith in Christ. So,
Yes.
right? So it isn't necessarily an indication of God's presence with you. I mean, what does it say? When I am weak, then I am strong. Because then all of a sudden, it's like, if anything went well, if any spiritual movement happened, this was clearly a result of God, because everything failed in terms of our human systems. And so I think that that's something very important that we need to look at. But we can be addicted to activity.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. Another one from a fulfillment standpoint, stress versus calling. High stress does not necessarily equate to divine calling. I'll never forget, I sat under a leader and he would drum up insanity leading up to a huge event. He would like throw wrenches in, I think subconsciously, so that we had this like fervor of barely pulling it off, and then it felt like we did something great, as opposed to going in with complete peace because all of the ducks are in a row. He kind of wanted to have this manic sense, and stress does not equate with like pulling it off and doing it well. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it can almost feel like, oh, the more stressful it is, the more godly I've gone through this, and more I'm doing God's work. And it's like, ministry doesn't have to be that way.
No. And so to foolishly, in my opinion, convolute and create, and like literally humanly create conditions so that it feels like it's the bottom of the ninth, bases are loaded, full count. It's the 7th game of the World Series. Everything depends on this next at bat. Like, I don't think that's, but I watch this leader seek to create those conditions. And that's a really unhealthy thing, in my opinion. So stress versus calling, just because we're just literally leaning forward, it feels like everything could fall apart. That's not necessarily an indication of God coming through for you. That's maybe that you're sabotaging your own self so that you can get a ministry buzz out of this.
Right. Absolutely.
Another quick question about fulfillment is joy. Are you experiencing genuine satisfaction? Do you feel a sense of God's hand on your life? And this is fun still, right? Fun is a huge factor to me. Okay, let's go on to the next one, fellowship. This is another indicator. So from an external perspective, to seek friends outside of your immediate circle, to get honest feedback. This is, of course, discerning whether or not it's time to stay or to go. You need an external perspective. You need honest feedback to have trusted confidants speak into your life. Now, the flip side, of course, we want an external perspective. We want honest feedback. The dark side of that coin is isolation.
Yeah.
And, we need people. And so a big piece to discerning whether or not it's time to stay or to go is fellowship and having some balanced discernment. Now, here's another one. Am I still becoming more like Jesus in this role? So first thing, family. What is your family life? How's that going? How is work and family integrating? That's a good question. Softness, the softness of your heart. And this is one that I have to check. As they say, ministry would be great if it wasn't for all of these people.
Yes,
do I still have a
absolutely.
softness in my heart? Do I still feel like a shepherd, or do I feel like a sheepdog that's kind of reverting back to my biological wolf tendencies? You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
How is scripture in your life? How is prayer happening in your life? Are you experiencing the fruits of the Spirit? I always remember somebody said to me one time, it's not like a tree is out there grunting, right, to produce fruit. It's not a work that we have to really, I really got to work hard at peace. No, peace is a natural outflow of being in the Spirit. So check that. Fruits of the Spirit, there's 9 of them. Feedback. Are you open to feedback? Are you gaining feedback from others? What about margin? Or are you just literally rolling everything clean up to the edge that is just not healthy. And again, we talked about this on the previous point. What's your joy factor, right? And so those are really big indicators. Am I right, Bill?
Yeah, they're all really good. And you can kind of use those as a checklist, like kind of go through each one of those and say, where is this at right now? That'd be a great starting point.
That would be a great starting point. So now we're going to turn the corner as we kind of close out the podcast and ask the question, like this path to discerning call out versus burnout. We're going to this is going to be very, very, very practical. So Bill, you kind of put this together for us. It's the 7-step discernment path. First, let's get some rest. Am I right?
Oh yeah. And we so need this. I mean, we've had episodes just on rest, but to really unplug and get away from ministry for 24 hours or longer if you need it is super important. Where I noticed this is kind of crazy. And I've talked to other pastors about this. I call it windshield time. So sometimes I'll plan something far outside of where I live that I have to drive to, because that time in the car, you're usually naturally unplugged unless you're listening to something, but you can be unplugged fairly easily. Yes. And there's something about driving and you got to go into auto mode where you can go, oh, and all these ideas come to me. All of this like clarity comes to me in those moments. And so I've realized more and more that you have to plan these things. You have to plan your unplugged time.
Yeah, I agree. So before you start making hard decisions, unplug at least 24 hours, get some clarity. So first, get rest. Second, journal. Now I'm going to take this one because I really liked this one. Journaling, and I have it right back behind me, right over here. And I journaled today. It's been a practice that I've had for 29.5 years. Am I right?
Wow.
And so it's been a very, very, very big part of my discernment and like checking in with myself process. Now, I can record my thoughts. I do pray through writing sometimes. And several things about journaling, Bill. One, there have been times where I have looked back and been like, okay, 18 years ago on this general time in like 18 years ago, not to the date, but to the month, what was going on in your life? And I go down to my fireproof safe and I pull out an old journal and I look up, I'm like, whoa, you were way more on track then than you certainly feel like you are right now. Right?
Yeah.
And I can look back and I can see patterns. I can see patterns of unhealth or patterns of health. And so journaling can be very, very, very helpful. Journaling, of course, is something that is really taking thoughts outside of the ricochet factor of your head and synthesizing them down onto paper. And for me, I don't use a digital journal. I use an old school analog journal. I've kept every one of them. There's something about the physical act of writing it down that I think is very important. Okay, counsel. Invite 3 trusted voices to speak into your situation. Of course, Bill, I would ask the question, podcast friend out there in podcast land, do you have 3 trusted people? If you don't, then that's a great place to start.
Yeah, and you have to be, this is a piece where you have to be discerning about it too, right? You shouldn't be going to just anybody. You don't just pull up to the Burger King drive-thru and say,
which direction ought I go in my life? And I'll have
That'd
a Whopper.
Be funny, though.
Can I have a Whopper as well? Yeah. Like, I kind of want to know. Now, I will say my soon-to-be future son-in-law, he is a big dog at Chick-fil-A and is in leadership at a Chick-fil-A. And he said, that they are trained to speak into people's worlds at Chick-fil-A. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
not Burger King, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. If ever you're going to go to a fast food restaurant for life decision-making and discernment, go to Chick-fil-A. But lo and behold, He said that he'll ask somebody, hey, how's your day going today? And really ask like he cares. And he goes, you'll be shocked at what I hear. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's one right there. Get some friends, get some counsel. assess your fruit. This is number 4 for discerning this discernment path. Evaluate ministry impact and your personal growth objectively. Your other friends can speak into this, because I can actually, in my burnout, I can feel like I maybe need to do something different. And then somebody outside of me is like, are you kidding me? Do you realize what God is doing through what you're up to? And you're like, you kind of just shake, like the cartoon where the dog shakes off all of the water, or a big, huge husky shakes and all of the water comes off. I need that. And sometimes it's a friend outside of me that helps me to effectively evaluate something outside of myself. Another one, number 5, fast and pray. Dedicate time to ask God. I do believe I read pretty reliable source that it said you receive not because you ask not. Another great place in the Bible, in the book of James, says when you ask, don't be like a double-minded man. Believe that when you've asked, that God will give it to you. So you're not blown and tossed by every wind of change. So we can ask God, and He is willing to answer us. Another one, draft options. This one I really like. Create a stay, a shift, or an exit scenario. Create a stay plan. Create a shift, do something different plan. Create an exit plan. Don't show anybody but maybe your 3 closest friends, but really you have those down. How do those feel? How do those 3 buckets feel?
Right. Well, and sometimes in the process of that, you get your answer. Like you write those things down and you're like, ooh, I'm writing this exit plan and that's not what I'm supposed to do, you know? Right. So it's just like, it brings clarity.
It does bring clarity. You're absolutely right. And number 7, of course, is choose and communicate. Once you've made a choice, share it appropriately. Now, if you're choosing to stay, I don't know that I'd necessarily go to my executive pastor or senior pastor and go, I went through this huge process and I want to tell you I'm staying. I don't know if I'd do that. But what
I just went through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru.
Yeah.
And the guy told me I should stay, so I'm here. Just want to let you know.
I'm in. I'm fully in. I feel God is through the power of Chick-fil-A. Yeah. Well, I always tell people, this is funny that we're bringing this up, but I always tell people, hey, is this the Holy Spirit, or is this like yesterday's bean soup that's kind of causing you some indigestion here?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? Your physical body is a piece to the puzzle. And if all of a sudden you're a little off and a little wonky, you got to be careful about making decisions like that. Well, here's the deal. Navigating your decision as we close out. If you stay or if you go. Let's go through the if you stay as we close. If you stay, like rethink and rescope your role. Maybe eliminate inefficient things. Maybe build a support network. Schedule some regular rest. If you're going to stay, figure out what you need to do to make your stay better.
Amen.
Now, if you're going to go, however, exit with grace. Redirect resources. Bless your successor. I always tell people, are you going to leave a bless or are you going to leave a mess? Right? We want to leave a bless and protect your recovery. After you quit, let's say you do decide to leave, there's going to be, especially if you're leaving a church or a ministry role, it's going to be very important for you to decompress and take like stock in your exit. You might be a little bit rattled for a while. But I have to tell you, I remember even this gal Bill that got a hold of us through email and said, hey, I really love the burnout thing. How do I discern this? And she was actually sharing that she felt some level of guilt because here's the funny thing. Once we've stepped into what we feel is our calling into the church, we think maybe that it's forever, that I said yes and the boat has been burned. I have got to do this. And that is simply not true. You may be called for a season to do this, that, and then it's time to move on. That's okay. Mm-hmm. And I want to give everybody permission. You do not, you married your spouse, you should stay with your spouse, right? You didn't marry your church job.
Right.
You can go someplace different.
There's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah. Well, gang, this has been a fun little episode for Bill and I, because this lady reached out to us. If you want to reach out and ask us to maybe formulate a podcast around your ideas or your question, please let us know how we could help. Well, gang, this has been the Lead Ministry Podcast. We're grateful that you're here, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Lead Ministry Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit leadvolunteers.com for more episodes and resources. Thanks for listening.